Hey everybody, today's video is all about retirement and financial independence. I sat down with 3 personal finance and investing experts who are either semi-retired or completely financially independent. I picked their brains on how they were able to retire early, how they figured out their retirement number, their retirement game plan, and what things they would have done differently on their way to financial independence. There's a wealth of information, pun intended, in this video, so stick around until the end. So just in general, if we just take a 5,000, aerial foot view, what does retirement mean to you?
For me, I think that retirement involves a little bit of work for me. I would say being able to do things that I enjoy and doing it for a much shorter period of time, call it 10 to 20 hours a week, where I provide some beneficial support and service to my community. So I think it's going to involve a little bit of work.
For me, it's that I don't have to work a 9-to-5 job and just live on my investments. And everything else that I want to do is just a cherry on top.
For me, retirement is having options and flexibility. That way you don't have to go into work and only work for money. You can actually have assets, you can have investments, whether that's stocks, real estate, whatever it is, paying for your lifestyle. And so that's what my family and I have gotten to that place with real estate in particular, where we have enough rental income coming in that I don't have to go to work, which to me is like kind of the epitome of retirement, financial freedom, whatever you want to call that, because now you have options to do whatever you want with your time, which is the most important part.
Nice, love it. So what age do you plan to retire, and how do you plan on getting there?
Yeah, originally I said 45 when I first started this channel, and I said I could achieve financial independence. However, ever since I started this my small business to help other people get out of debt, invest in their retirement, now it's more like, well, I can continue to do what I do as long as I enjoy it.
So what are your favorite retirement planning tools? Like, how are you reverse engineering this whole process? How do you know what number you need to be at?
Outside of, planning with Coastfire, we also enjoy the free tools from Empower. They help us to kind of plan our retirement, look at those fees and see if I'm paying too much in my, my 401k or my IRA, and how I can bring those down and work on those timelines. Those free tools are very helpful for us. And we also use Monarch, which is a really nice budgeting tool for us to plan our current financial situation and make projections as a couple to move things forward. So those 2 tools are our favorites.
When I started this journey, I grabbed a notebook. This was back in end of 2015. I wrote down my timeline and just like, all right, this is what I want to do, 35, 40, 45 in the increments of 5 years to get to those numbers. Creating that timeline, and what I call is the FIRE timeline. Understanding my own timeline was probably the most important step.
For me, there's 2 metrics that are really important to me that are interrelated. One is just net worth. What is your net worth? And so just measuring that over time. But importantly to me is like, if you want to replace your salary, which is essentially to me what an early retirement or a mini retirement is that you have to not have to go to work to make that salary. So you need cash flow, you need income. I think that math is pretty simple compared to some of the complex formulas, but it's more about stacking up a small amount of properties and then eventually being conservative with them and being able to produce that cash flow, harvest that cash flow. And that to me has been like the most important metric that allows me to have that freedom.
So when you say investing for retirement, take us through like your investing game plan. Like, how are you actually getting there? Are you putting cash on your mattress? What are you doing?
Yeah, that one didn't work for us. So we're trying other things. Yeah, we're investing with our IRAs and 401ks and HSAs currently right now. So tax advantaged programs that will help us to get to a point at 60 years old where we can essentially live off of that income. So we use low-cost index funds, diversified, and it helps us to build our retirement as it has over the past 10, 15 years. We've gotten to a point right now where we're around $600,000, $700,000 in our retirement investments, and through time and compound interest, it's really going to help us to get to a point when we're in our 60s to feel very comfortable.
I built up my emergency savings in case I lost my job. I built up my cash savings for any trips that I wanted to take, because I didn't want to just invest and not do anything fun. So I set that aside as well. Then I moved on to the Roth IRA portion. And that's when I realized, wow, that is a tax-free growth. So my employer offered a 401k. So I max out my 401k, max out my Roth IRA, and then I start putting a little bit more towards the taxable investment and my taxable brokerage account, which is a complete separate brokerage account that from 401k and IRA, and that was my early retirement funding. And the 401k and IRA was more of I call that my insurance going into my 60s or 55, so that I don't retire at 55 or 60 and not have any nest eggs in there.
Love it. So what are you actually investing in?
Most of it is in the S&P 500. We have a little bit of exposure to mid cap and a little exposure to small cap as well. And we don't have a lot of bonds in our portfolio right now in our early 40s. That is something that will continue to add over time. I feel like I've been through some rocky times in the market over the past 20 years, and I've proven to hold firm. So I feel like my current bond allocation is appropriate based on that.
Right now, it's all index funds. Vanguard has some of the best index funds, in my opinion. They have the S&P 500 index fund that started with that. And I started doing more research on the sector ETFs and sector index funds, something that's more aggressive, but not too aggressive. I don't do any actively managed mutual funds or ETFs. It's just all index funds and sector ETFs.
Obviously the hot topic today is inflation. Do you guys factor inflation in your retirement planning?
Houses tend to go up in value with inflation. That's kind of been the long-term trend. So I think that's kind of an assumption I make as long as I'm in a good location with good long-term economics. I assume that if my rents today can make me $10,000 per month, then 10 years from now, I'll probably have the equivalent of what $10,000 is today, adjusted for inflation.
We definitely put that into our projections to make sure that we are planning accordingly. So our $80,000 in income today will also equate, the future $80,000 as well, to make sure we're living in the same quality of life.
What are your thoughts on the FIRE movement in general? Some people criticize it. They say it's mission impossible to get there. You have to live like a pauper or a monk. Some people say, hey, I live by it. I love it. What are your thoughts on it in general?
When we talk about FIRE, I understand that the RE part, the RE, retire early, is always a part of it. But what people need to focus on is the FI, financial independence. So forget about the retire early portion of it. Just focus on the FI, right? So you can become financially independent and not retire early.
I think, working so hard in the FIRE movement in order to, get to a point and then say, oh, then I'll be happy. I think there's a lot of folly with that. I think working hard, yes, investing for the future is important. You might see that you can make a happier day today instead of in 10 years from now, 20 years from now.
I love it. I think it's really, I think one of the benefits is given to people is like a different vision of how to approach work and a different vision of how to approach consumerism in general. But I think overall the FIRE movement is about this idea that hey, there's this cog in this machine of the corporate world and working for other people, and everybody else is controlling your salary and your money. Why not, instead of buying stuff, buy your freedom.
Okay, so is there anything that you would have done differently in your career or in your retirement planning?
One thing I would change, and I talked about this on my channel, is as soon as I paid off my debt at the end of 2015, I only contributed to my 2016 Roth IRA. I could have contributed to my 2015 Roth IRA, and people would say, well, that's only $5,000, $5,500 for that year. What difference does that make? It makes a big difference looking at now, because all of the compound interest and that $5,500, 10 years into it, that could have potentially grown into tens of thousands of dollars in tax-free money.
I got a little too excited about it and amped up my savings rate and worked harder than I ever needed to. And I felt like my happiness would only be there if I were able to quit my job. That drove me to a point of a difficulty in my marriage. We wouldn't probably have needed to get to that point if I just took my foot off the gas a little bit more and realized that life is for living, and find ways to find those important pieces of joy each day, as opposed to saying, I'm going to be happy when. I'm going to be happy if I hit this number. I'm going to be happy if I get to retirement. Try to figure out your happy day today. Try to figure out your happy life today. Who knows what the future will bring?
Yeah, I love that. I love that you shared that. And I think the FIRE or the retirement planning, that should just be the gravy on top if you even get there based on the actions you're doing today. So if you treat every day kind of like a blessing or find joy in your day, to use your example, I think that's a great perspective.
Yeah, thank you.
Last thing is, if you ever feel stuck, you can do it. Like, you can absolutely do it. It just takes time. You might not see it now, but just look at your timeline. Where do you want to be in 5 to 10 years? Where do you want to be in 20 years? Focus on what you have now. Achieve that one financial goal, and then move on to the next one, and then move on to the next one. Don't do 5 things at the same time. Do it one thing at a time.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us.